reached the end of the trifecta of stoner comedies based on classic stories. Well, not counting the incident that happened in between, that is. Well, you also may be wondering why I'm wearing green today. Well, mainly it's because of today's review, where we'll be looking at the recent film reboot of The Green Hornet. But first, a little narration.
On police records, a wanted criminal, the Green Hornet is really Britt Reed, owner-publisher of the Daily Sentinel. His dual identity known only to his secretary and to the district attorney.
Thank you. And now a history lesson. The Green Hornet started off as a radio show back in the 1930s, primarily as a companion piece to The Lone Ranger, followed by film serials, comic books, and ultimately the 1960s television series, which only lasted one season because the rights holders hated the way the show turned out. But more recently, it was rebooted as a stoner comedy starring the modern-day emperor of stoners, Seth Rogen. As you can see, this was kind of a vanity project for him. Apparently the film was going to be directed by Stephen Chow, but Rogen constantly butted heads with and eventually fired him and got Michael Goundry as a replacement. So let's hope this project turns out to not be a complete mangled up mess beyond proportions. This is Seth Rogen's The Green Hornet. So the movie starts with the logos being tainted with radioactive Homer Simpson sludge as we see a kid playing with an action figure as he's being sent to his dad's office for being suspended due to a fight at school, which apparently happens quite often by his dialogue here. He says something about a dead mother.
I know you miss your mother.
But it's nearly glossed over as he tells him to go fuck himself.
I was trying to stop some bullies and then
Trying doesn't matter when you always fail. Do you think it makes me happy to do this?
Yeah!
No, it doesn't. So not a week goes by without you find yourself in some kind of trouble. Now, if you're doing this for attention, you have all that I can afford to give you. And you're wasting my time.
Oops! We cut to 20 years later as we see the main villain of the movie, Chudnovsky, played by Christoph Waltz, as he's getting ready for his interview with Rogen's life partner, James Franco,
What can I do for you?
where he tells him how he's running a drug operation without his permission.
It's completely unacceptable.
And he gives the choice to partner up with him or be shut down.
Closed down permanently.
After some forced bit about pronouncing Chudnovsky's name,
Tchaikovsky.
Chudnovsky.
Franco tries to intimidate him by saying he's too old to do shit,
You're washed up.
and is then proven wrong mere minutes later as he guns down his entire crew and blows the place up while leaving his calling card. We then cut back to see that the little kid has now grown up to be Seth Rogen, where we see him doing what he does best, being Seth Rogen. We see him heading back to his mansion with a floozy when we see his customary breakfast being prepared by someone whose identity the film's trying really hard to conceal, as Rogen wakes up the next morning with his customary privileged coffee, and his dad walks in once again giving him a lecture.
This gives you a sense of fulfillment, Dad? I told you.
While providing some foreshadowing for later on.
I kept myself out of the papers for years. Now do me a favor and do the same.
And faster than you can say dead dad, we cut to Rogen and his floozy in a limo watching a 90s music video before cutting to a news report on his dad's death via bee sting.
If you're just joining us, James Reed has been found dead from an allergic reaction to a bee sting, leaving his son his media empire.
Gee, I sure hope this comes into play later or something. We cut to his funeral while a sad Johnny Cash song plays in the background
I saw a lone rider.
as this film unintentionally inspires the Dark Knight Rises ending. As Rogen takes over the family business.
This is your newspaper.
And we see he's fired the entire staff as we see his coffee is merely decaf. He then storms his privileged ass off to demand who it is that makes his coffee.
Coffee! Coffee! I must have my coffee!
My coffee tastes like shit!
Your coffee is normally made by Kato.
You know, had it not been for the fact that they addressed Kato directly, I would have assumed this wasn't part of the script. We are then introduced to Kato, who in this film is played by Jay Chu, who is apparently a legendary pop star in his native land of Taiwan, a talent that none of which will be showcased in this movie. After fixing up the village coffee hidden in the leaves, he starts asking questions about how Kato came to be in his presence.
Sit with me, Kato. Tell me your tale.
They start exchanging their past history, this being the only other time his mother's death is ever mentioned.
Sorry, my mom died when I was young, too.
Kato then shows him the cars he built, showing how they can withstand impact, reinflate tires, and feature their own weapons. After zooming in on the trademark Black Beauty car, Kato then shows some schematics for them, as well as a few other personal hobbies,
Kato, are you a pervert?
while also giving a blink and you'll miss it Bruce Lee reference, since he actually played Kato in the 60s television series. After showcasing a pointless 3D sequence, they then go on about how much of a douche his dad really was.
What did you think of my father?
Was a bit of a dick.
Yep.
And from there, they decide to form a team,
Let's do something crazy, man. Let's just do something nuts.
where they decide to go all Bart Simpson on the statue.
Come here!
But it just so happens that there's an assault going on nearby, which he tries to stop,
Hey!
but fucks up,
Oh shit! I made a mistake!
leaving it up to Kato to save the day by using his exploit the film's post-converted 3D vision. Seriously, that's the only explanation as to why we're being treated to this eyesore. It's simply there to justify the film's 3D ticket price. We then get a car chase involving the cops, but rather than let the scene speak for itself, the film does this.
Oh man, now we're in a car chase! Now we're in a car chase! Now we're in a car chase!
We have fun learning what we don't know.
The scene ultimately ends in a clip normally viewed on either Tosh.0 or Ridiculousness, or possibly some trash show on True TV.
Damn it!
They celebrate their first high, in terms of action that is, while also hanging the lampshade on the 3D action sequence.
That was like you knew where people were without even looking. It was so fast.
When my heart starts pumping, it's almost like time slows down.
It's unbelievable how cool we are. Do you hear me, Dad?
And after watching the news declare them criminals,
How can we be heroes if they think we're criminals?
they try to be clever with deconstructing the whole superhero premise by officially masquerading themselves as criminals.
Every movie, it's in every comic book, it's in everything. It's so stupid. But if the bad guy thought the good guy was also a bad guy, he wouldn't be able to do that. That's what we'll do differently. We will pose as villains, but we'll act like heroes. I would read that book, and I don't read shit. But when they adapted it into a movie, I would see the shit out of it.
If by that you mean watch as they place their own stamp on the story while shitting all over the source material in the process. The next day, they enter the board meeting as they waste time making an overly long homo joke.
Who's your friend?
He's my man.
I'm not your man.
He's not my man. No, he's not my man. He's like he's like my man. He's my we're just platonic friends. We're platonic male friends.
Mikey, grab my stick! Hold on a stick! No homo, bro! I was talking about the one on my back! Oh yeah!
As they officially stamp their street personas as criminals.
I want him on every news outlet we have. I want the whole city to know how dangerous this man is.
They then come up with a nickname for them while looming over various newspaper articles, trying to be hilarious about it by dragging out yet another bit
Called the Green Bee.
Well, at least they didn't resort to using a name like Cutie Honey. That would have been especially insulting. Not to him, but to Cutie Honey. Before Kato gives out the official name.
The Green Hornet.
We then meet Lenore Case, played by Cameron Diaz, who seems to be looking to be the new secretary.
The temp for Mr. Reed's secretarial position?
And right away she seems to be in this film as a plot device.
Who is the hottie boom body who's standing right behind me right now?
That, as well as...
To be honest, this paper has taken a dip in the last few years in quality and ambition.
Really?
to provide some social commentary that can be pretty much described as this.
I bet you like to read a lot, too.
Print is dead.
She then gives them a plot guideline to follow in form of where the Green Hornet would strike next.
He'll probably try to appropriate more power. You know, he'll hit somebody on their own turf. Basically, he'll start out small, and then he'll work his way up to the top. I mean, that's what John Gotti did to Paul Castellano in '85.
While making unfunny references to other films.
Twilight? Cocoon, or something like that. Years.
Wait, I'm only 36.
And then making some misogynistic jokes
31 tops. I don't even know if we can hire a 36-year-old.
before making her permanent secretary.
This means that I am not going to be your temp any longer, then I'm sorry, it's...
That's exactly what it means. Because you are now my permanent secretary.
Thank you.
Yes.
I promise I will not disappoint you.
I don't think you will.
We also get a callback to an earlier scene with the sketches.
Pervert.
Later that night, they start putting together the armored cars like the one they focused on earlier, while also showcasing a montage of making fun of the source material once more. And we get an almost perfect analogy to compare and contrast in terms of the main characters of this film, as Kato does work and Seth Rogen acts like Seth Rogen. He then puts the finishing touch by creating their masks and pulls a bait and switch on the car before unveiling it as the Black Beauty. Insert classic niche literary joke here. Which they then take off on as they make another pop culture reference that goes on for a while. Enjoy Jay Shu singing in this scene? Well, good, because that's pretty much all the film gives him to showcase his true talent. But oh shit, they were aimless in their mission, and so they used their plot device secretary to provide the exposition from earlier.
I'm looking at you.
After making yet another pop culture reference, having it sent via fax machine.
South Central.
Yeah, okay, we got 14 homicides, 34 assaults, 116 drug arrests.
Where they wind up in a ghetto region.
Never been in this part of town. I think we're in the hood, Kato. This is really, really intense. No shit, Sherlock.
After they waste time arguing,
Just pull up to them.
they confront the gangsters.
I am the Green Hornet, and I would like to sit down with your boss.
But after pulling a gun, things go haywire really fast as we have a car swipe on the gang. And we get another 3D effect. As well as some intentional bad wire effects to pass off as comedy, and topping it off with yet another red flash for 3D effect.
What was that?
He tries desperately to interrogate the gang members, but for the sake of comedy, they're all just a bunch of shot-up corpses. He interrogates one of the survivors on the neighborhood's boss, who he reveals to be Chudnovsky. And we get this bit.
Chernovsky. What kind of a dumb name is that?
Hey, don't blame us. You named him. He's your hang-up. They then ram a building where the meth lab is located and leaves his calling card.
The Green Hornet sends his regards.
And sets the place aflame for their trouble, but not before one of them can escape the blaze. We cut to Chudnovsky as he questions the survivor, who turns out to be John Connor, who reveals the Green Hornet's calling card, while unintentionally getting on Chudnovsky's bad side by saying he was less scary since he only wears a suit.
Wearing a mask is a little bit scarier than a guy wearing a suit.
You're not pleased with my suit? Does it fail to fill you with fear?
Sorry, I didn't mean any disrespect. You have any idea how many great people have killed in a suit?
Maybe you should have stuck with freeing lobsters from their tank.